Welcome in. This is Rin. And what are we talking about? I had this realization last week, and it's regarding shoes. It's regarding the things that we put on our feet, right? It's regarding footwear, right? So if I take my shoe off, you can see this is the shoe that I wore today. It's called Hey Dude, right? I wore this today because why? Because I have to wear shoes on my feet when I go to my job, right? And I walk the street, right? So basically, this is what I wanted to talk about today was shoes. And this is a realization that I had last week. I already said that. So let's get into it. So basically, our human nature has led us to create unnatural things that separate us away from nature and from our true nature and even our higher self, right? Because there's dual play between what we can create and the things that we're creating that are preventing us from accessing our higher selves, accelerating ourselves, and becoming closer to nature, right? And our origin. So yeah, shoes, right? Like, okay, what does this have to do with shoes? Well, shoes are pretty unnecessary, right? In nature, right? In society, shoes are necessary, right? When we're walking, on the streets or on the sidewalks, or we're going to our job and we need to wear shoes and we need to dress a certain way and we need to adhere to a certain dress code or a certain way of dressing ourselves because of our job, right? Due to our professions. We need to wear these, right? In society, right? Shoes in society are necessary. Shoes outside of society in nature are completely unnecessary. Why? Why are shoes unnecessary outside outside of society? Like, why is that? Well, we don't have sidewalks, we don't have streets, we don't have our jobs where we have to dress a certain way and present ourselves a certain way, right? There's not like a norm as far as what we need to dress when we're in society and we're upholding some sort of image for other people to look at, as far as how we dress ourselves, as far as how we conduct ourselves. So, right, shoes being unnecessary in nature, right? Nature outside of society, societies that we've built, right, around nature, right? Like sidewalks and roads and buildings and shopping centers and establishments, right? Businesses, stores, right? Schools, and so forth. Right. And then you have outside of that, right now, like we're in nature right now, right? We're in the woods. It's like a woodsy desert, right? Where we're at right now. So if we just live in nature, we don't need any footwear of any sort, right? Any shoes, right? See, the problem with wearing shoes in nature, see, shoes are acceptable in society, but in nature, if we're trying to adhere to a more natural lifestyle and way of living and dressing, right? Shoes aren't necessary. Why aren't shoes necessary? Because nature has designed for us our very own shoe, right? Our feet is the best shoe that nature has designed and invented for us, right? The foot is the best. The foot is the best shoe. That's what I was trying to say. The foot is the best shoe that nature has ever designed for us to use. It's the only shoe we actually need, right? Is our foot. So the thing with the foot is that you have your toes, you have your joints, right? Your a ball joint, and you have basically the sole of your foot that reacts to the hard surfaces of the ground, right? It responds to it. How does it respond to it? When you're using it every day in nature, it responds to the hard surfaces by basically callousing at the bottom, right? The sole of your foot calluses, or it calcifies or solidifies and creates a hard surface to where when you walk even more throughout your life or your day-to-day life in nature, it becomes easier and more comfortable to walk on the elements. It's more susceptible to the or more resilient to the elements, to the hard ground, to the rocks, to the gravel, right? Because of the hard surface of your sole of your foot, the sole of your foot, right? After a while, it solidifies and you can walk everywhere comfortably. But if you try and do it now because you have worn shoes your whole life, right? You've worn socks and you've worn shoes your whole life, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel out of place. Because why? Because your feet have not adapted to the elements of outside or of nature. So because of that, it has led to your foot, the sole of your foot, being very soft, being very mushy, right? Being very, just very soft. So if you try to do that now, if you've worn shoes your whole life and socks, right, all of these man-made kind of inventions for your feet that we use in everyday society, and you try and walk barefoot right now in nature, it's going to feel very uncomfortable. It's going to feel very out of place. It's going to feel very, it might hurt, right? Because your feet haven't adapted to like the elements and the surfaces of the ground or of nature, right? Outside in nature, right? So, right. So the problem with wearing shoes, another problem with wearing shoes, right? Especially when we're working in our shoes, our work shoes, right? Is that the socks, it like has this kind of adhesive effect around your foot to where if your feet sweat, because the body part that you're using, right? Like if I'm like gaming with a gaming controller, I'm using a PlayStation controller and I'm gaming, after a while, the palms of my hands are going to be sweaty, the ridges of my fingers are going to be sweaty. They're going to, they're going to contain sweat and dirt. So the body parts that we're using for you know, uh, at a prolonged amount of time, they start to sweat because it's the body's response to being used. So the body is cooling itself off while being used so that the body parts don't overheat. And the body parts use this form of heat regulation and temperature regulation so that your certain body parts that are being used aren't overheating, or they don't get too cold if they are being used too much. Right? So it's the same deal with our feet. We use our feet when we're at our job if we're walking a lot of steps, our feet start to get really sweaty, right? The toes get really sweaty, the soles of our feet get sweaty. So the socks, it creates like an adhesive to our foot sweat. So this can make our shoes smell really bad and our socks smell really bad. And that's just very unnatural. And that's just not what happens in nature, because in nature, of course, when we're using our feet to walk outside or in nature all day or for hours every day, it's like our feet will sweat a little bit every minute or every few minutes. Like it'll just kind of take its time with the sweating process because of the air, the fact that you are letting your feet breathe and you're not containing your feet with anything, or putting any fabrics or any pieces of clothing around your feet that are hugging your feet, that are not allowing your feet to breathe. When you don't have anything doing that in nature, your feet can actually breathe and they don't really sweat. They sweat very little, and it just kind of it just takes its time, right? The sweating process, and it drags out, and you don't really have to deal with sweaty feet or smelly feet in nature. So another thing is your feet haven't adapted. If they do smell bad in nature, it's another thing could be that your feet haven't adapted to not wearing shoes for so long, and now your feet have to adapt to the elements outside and to not having these leathers and fabrics and cottons around your feet. So I'm trying to think of other things, other negatives when it comes to wearing shoes. So another thing that I just remembered was when it comes to shoes is our feet have to kind of adhere to the design of the shoe. When we put the shoe on our foot, it's like there's a certain shape that our foot has to adhere to, right? This cookie cutter type shape that our foot has to adhere to. And depending on how long we wear the shoe, how tight the shoe is, how tight we tight our lace, we tighten our laces to hug our feet in the shoe. It only makes it worse. We're basically forcing our feet to take an unnatural form that is tailoring itself to shape the shoe that you're putting over it every day, right? So we see, I'll put a photo right here of NBA players who wear their shoes for years, or their Jordans, and it squeezes their feet. It forces their feet to be shaped in an unnatural way, in the way that the shoe is shaped, right? You're forcing your foot to take a different form. So, but when you don't wear shoes, if you look at a picture, I'm going to put a picture right here. People who don't wear shoes their whole life, it's like their feet look like this, right? it's like there's no um not resistance, but it's like it's not forcing the feet to just kind of get crunched and squish inward. When you're not wearing shoes your whole life, your feet look like this because they want to kind of spread out, and your feet kind of grip your toes. They feel the rocks and they feel the ground and they feel the different elements of the floor of nature, so they kind of spread out, and because they're constantly gripping what's what the toes of your feet are gripping, like the rocks, the pebbles, the gravel, the sticks, right? Maybe you're climbing on rocks and it's just like forcing your toes to grip certain ridges and angles of the rocks. So it's exercising your feet and your toes. It's training your toes to spread outward, right? Like a monkey, like how monkeys have like big spread out toes. So that's that, with what shoes do to our feet and how our feet are in nature physically. I think that was it. And then, so now I'm going to go into the spiritual level. That's the level that's higher than the physical level, than the physical plane. I'm going to talk spiritual. So basically, when you take the shoes off of your, when you put the shoes on your feet and you're in nature or you're outside, this is basically cutting you off from receiving information about yourself and about the planet, right? It's cutting you off from being able to connect with the planet around you and being able to connect with your environment around you, right? Like you're blocking yourself from having that susceptibility, from being able to gain information about yourself and about this planet, right? What is yourself? I'm talking about your origin. I'm talking about your ancestors. I'm talking even about like your higher self and your true nature, and past just yourself in general. You are blocking yourself from being able to receive information about your environment, your world that's around you right now, right? And it's a way of, well, when you don't wear the shoes and you're in nature, it's a way of being able to connect with your environment. It's a way of being able to connect with your body and becoming more familiarized with the world around you and your environment, right? It creates more of a sense of predictability, using one of our senses that we have of many, that can really connect us to our environment and create that kind of wall of stability or of predictability when we're in nature, or we're outside, right? So when you wear the shoes, you're like cutting yourself off, especially if the shoes have a lot of toxic materials or fabrics. It's even worse. So, think of and with our toes. We have our toes that, like, in nature, when you don't wear shoes, I guess you could say natural human beings, when they don't wear shoes in nature and they have spread out feet, it's like they're like our toes are like roots that are trying to reach out. Like each toe is like here, I'll show you. Each toe is like a root where you're able to, it's like it's able to like connect with the electricity of the planet, right? Like the energies, the frequencies of the planet, the electricity from the planet. With each toe, you're able to pick up on the signals, the vibrations, the electricity that is in your environment, in your field of environment, right? But it's actually on this planet, right? It's like our nervous system. Our nervous system looks like looks a lot like these tree branches, right? It's like they're like veins, right? These veins that are in our bodies, they're like spread out to try and pick up on signals through our physical body, through our physical vessel, right? What are the signals? The signals is a way of understanding and getting and gaining information of our surroundings and of our environment. It's the same deal with our toes. We gain information and signals and electricity through our toes when we're putting our feet in nature and like on the floor, on the ground, right? We're getting this information, we're getting these signals, right? We're really getting information about our environment, about the planet, right? Yeah, so our feet is one of the most important parts of the human, like the physical human body. It allows us to walk. And yeah, I mean, if you spend your whole life in nature without shoes, you won't really have to worry about the discomforts of walking barefoot outside, because really you only have to worry about goat heads, maybe thorns, but that's pretty much it. If your feet are like already like calloused, like when we, like even our hands get calloused when we use them. Like some construction workers or mechanics get calloused hands because they're using them every day. And it's the body's, it's the response, the surface's response to touching or meeting other surfaces and being used. It creates a reaction where it calcifies or it solidifies or calluses. So the same deal happens with our feet. So where like the bottoms of our feet, the soles, it's like they are super it creates like this resilience or this resistance to the hard ground and the elements of the ground. I mean, all you have to really kind of watch out for is like goat heads, but that's pretty much it when you're in nature. So I think that was everything that I had to say about feet. There was one other there was one other thing I have to say about feet, but I'm not allowed to say it, or else I'm going to get demonetized. So I'm not going to say it in this video. I'm going to finish the video by saying the gist of the video is to just go barefoot to your office job. Especially go barefoot when you have to use the boys' bathroom and use the urinal. That is the gist of, this video. If you got anything out of this video, that is the gist of the video. So, thank you guys for watching the video, and I will see you guys in the next video.